Hello, everybody. What is going on? Thank you so much for tuning into the Queen's Lounge podcast. Welcome to the lounge. I am your homegirl, Shay. And of course, I have another special guest with me today. This person is dear to my heart, and I love him so much. This is my husband, Gregory Brodrick, who is going to be joining me today on today's episode of the Queen's Lounge. Today is a very special episode. We're going to be talking about our birthing story of our son, Khalil Brodrick, who is so amazing. We love him to life. He is such an amazing young man. He has beat the odds even from birth. From the time he was in the womb up until now, he has definitely wowed the doctors. He has definitely been a living miracle. God has really shown up and shown out in his life. And so we're going to give you our birthing story today so you can get a better understanding of why he is such a blessing to us and why we love him so much outside of him just being our child. So let's go ahead and get into it, shall we? Baby, you want to introduce yourself to the people so they know who you are besides just my husband?
Hi, my name is Greg, Shay's husband. Man, and proud father of Khalil Isaac Broderick. Um, you guys may know me from other two podcasts I do, the G Report podcast I do, and Red Kingdom. Um, and yeah,
That's it. That's
that's
all you want
it.
them to know.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
it. Yeah.
So
That's it.
let's get into it. So a lot of you already know kind of like my history, my backstory of how I conceived. I was a person who struggled with a condition called PCOS, that's polycystic ovarian syndrome. And with that condition, it made it very difficult to conceive naturally. And because of that, there were a lot of things that I had to go through. I sought out an infertility doctor. We met with the fertility doctor. He gave us some instructions, to make the story short, gave us some instructions to do. We did the instructions we needed to do. We took all the proper medications, got everything situated, got everything done. And voila, we got impregnated with son. So after that, I went through the pregnancy. A lot of the pregnancy symptoms I definitely suffered with. I had morning sickness. I had the swollen ankles. I had the on and off appetites. I had the sleepless nights. I had the uncomfortability, if that's a word. If it's not, it's gonna be one today. So I had a lot of the pregnant symptoms, and I remember when I was having a conversation with my husband right before we conceived Khalil, I was saying that whenever God got ready to bless us with our blessing, that I wanted to experience everything. And boy, listen, God got a sense of humor because when I said that and he turned around and blessed us with our son, that's exactly what he did. I felt all the feels. Okay. Everything that you go through being pregnant, everything that you endure while being pregnant, I endured all of that. And right today, after having my son, I wouldn't trade any of that for the world. I would do it all over again. And it's amazing because you hear a lot of women give you their experiences, give you their stories on giving birth and how it felt and what they experienced and the type of symptoms they had during each pregnancy. And you always hear women, if they're choosing to have another one, always say that they would do it again. Because you do have some women who are okay with just having the one, because they just don't want to experience it again. And then you have women who love giving birth so much or love their children so much or just want more than one child, where they'll tell you, I went through what I went through, but I would definitely do it again. And that's me. I had my girlfriends give me their birthing stories, and they had multiple children. And it was amazing how each of their stories differed. None of their stories were the same, of course, because they're, two different individuals or three different individuals at the time. But not only that, but they all have, more than one child. But even in their stories being different because they're different women, but even with each child, it was different. I was really, really disappointed to hear that none of them dealt with morning sickness. I was really upset about that because I felt like I was the only woman. I know I'm not, but at the time, I felt like I was the only woman hearing all of their birthing stories and then having to be like, well, dang, why am I going through this morning sickness? And when I say it was sickness, y'all, it was morning sickness. My husband is a living witness because every time that I couldn't keep anything down, every time that my son was like a football player and wanted to kick it out my stomach, every single time he was always there to comfort, to console, to make sure I was okay, to find alternatives, things that I could keep down. And all in all, because it was so bad, my doctor had to prescribe me medication to take. to make sure that when I did eat, I was able to keep things down because I still had to get the nutrients from whatever food I was intaking. And because I couldn't keep anything down, it wasn't really helping me or the baby, in that case. So medication was something that was prescribed to me so that I could keep things down. I found that eating in smaller portions did help. Eating things that I enjoyed, I felt that I couldn't eat any longer because I couldn't keep anything down. What really helped was fruits. Fresh fruit was something I could really do. Cheese was something I could really keep down. It got to a point in some circumstances where I couldn't even keep liquid down. Liquid was difficult to keep down. Even water, something as simple as water, it would come right on back up. So I got to the point where I got really frustrated with it. I got to the point where I needed something to be done because this was not working, and I was just tired of throwing up. I lost a lot of weight because of not being able to keep anything down because I kept, throwing up. And then the whole time that this is happening, I'm concerned about my baby. I'm concerned about our son. And come to find out, anything that a woman goes through during her pregnancy, the baby is not affected by it, when it's on the surface. If that makes sense, things like throwing up, things like not being able to sleep, that type of thing. It's not really affecting the baby. And so, that made me feel a little bit better, but I'm hungry. I'm starving. You know what I mean? I can't keep anything down. So, doc, okay, listen, sis, you got to give me something that's going to help me keep this food down because, yeah, no, babe, what was going through your mind when I couldn't keep anything down, when I kept throwing up? And I mean, it wasn't that throw up like, vaguely throw up. I mean, y'all, I was really in there hawking, okay? Like I would consume, my entire meal, and 5 minutes later, it's all coming back up. Like literally all of it. Babe, what was you thinking? Because I know you had to be like, okay, now, I know this is part of the pregnancy, but is it gonna be this bad the entire time?
Um, I was concerned because just like you said, it was hard for you to keep stuff down. And I didn't want you to, be, hungry, So
Listen, because I like to eat.
yeah,
Okay, facts.
what I noticed is it would be certain foods or certain fast foods that would
Hmm.
make you throw up.
Yeah,
So we would try to not, eat those things. And when you didn't eat those things, it usually went pretty
it
good.
did. Yeah.
And then you didn't like the ginger ale, so we couldn't do
Nope,
that.
that didn't work.
I love
It left a
ginger
nasty
ale.
taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I love ginger ale. Wife did not like ginger ale,
Uh-uh.
so we couldn't do that route. But yeah, my only concern was making sure that you would be able to eat something
Hmm.
because at first, the first part of the morning sickness, everything was coming up.
Yes,
And that's when I was like, okay, well, what can you eat? Because you have to eat something. So that's where my thinking was on that. I'm glad as we went later on, through the pregnancy, that the morning sickness got better.
it did. It
Yeah,
definitely did.
yeah, yeah.
I did not eat fast food the entire duration of my pregnancy until like towards the end where I was able to keep things down. But the beginning of my pregnancy, because I couldn't hold anything down, that was one of the things I had to get rid of. The fast food, all the grease and fried and all of that. Son did not like that, and he did not take that very well. So I definitely had to get rid of the fast food stuff that I was intaking, and I'm glad that I did because I was beginning to feel a lot better. Um, the morning sickness happened suddenly because the first couple weeks of my pregnancy, I was completely fine. I was able to eat. I was able to keep it down. I was able to enjoy the foods that I'm used to eating pre-pregnancy. So I was completely fine. And then I was at work one day and I had to run. And pregnant women know you get that gurgliness in the stomach, okay, get to turning and bubbling, and it's not coming out the other end, it's coming out the front. and you have to really get to the bathroom real quick, that was me. And at the time, I didn't know what was happening. But I was like, well, there's the morning sickness. There it goes. I was really hoping that I wouldn't have to experience it because it happens like later in the pregnancy. I was still in my, weeks, early weeks, but it wasn't in like my first month. It wasn't until my second, third. I had morning sickness from my second month all the way up till about my fourth month, my fourth or fifth month. And I when I tell y'all I was so excited that there was something that I could take that was safe for me to take for the baby to help with the morning sickness. It definitely helped. Definitely
Magic.
helped. Yes.
Magic.
Yes. It was almost instant. I took it. I had to take it 30 minutes before I would eat so that it would settle. And then I ate and listen, I went to town on some food, okay? Went to town on some food. I had been wanting some wings. That was the first thing I ate whenever I got to take that medicine. The first thing I ate was some wings. And I enjoyed it, and I was able to, keep it down. And even after the medication wore off, I was still fine. Nauseousness was something else that I dealt with. Shortness of breath. For the pregnant women who know, the bigger you get, the more the baby is suppressing on a lot of organs. So it makes it really hard to breathe. Even when laying down, I had to sit up. And then my son found certain body parts or certain areas of my body where he was comfortable. So he would lay there and he would be there for a long time, hours, days. When he moved around, he just positioned himself to get more comfortable in that same area. So it made it very comfortable to lay down, very comfortable to sit down, to walk even sometimes. The nauseousness was unbearable at times. I felt like I had to throw up but couldn't. You know what I mean? I was queasy, and pregnancy was something that a lot of women try to describe to you, but it's one of those things where you have to experience it on your own to really get the fullness of what's being told to you. Because it really was like that. Also, after going through, the morning sickness, the nauseousness, after, experiencing everything that you experienced with being pregnant, with my husband really, being there to, comfort and be so supportive during that time, because I got frustrated with it because it was getting to the point where nothing would stay down. After going through all of that, we get to our ninth month or our 8th month, because we didn't even make it to 9 months. We got to our 8th month of pregnancy, and I was starting to have these really, really bad headaches. And I didn't understand why. And I mean, I would have headaches for 2, 3 days at a time. And I would take Tylenol because it was safe for me to take. I would take Tylenol. That wouldn't help. And I got to the point where I was starting to take it too much and nothing was happening. So I stopped taking it. Call the doctor, let the doctor know, hey, doc, I'm having this headache. I've had it for the last 48 hours. Nothing's helping. I've taken Tylenol. It's not working. What's going on? Immediately, she wanted me to come to the doctor's office, go to the triage unit, and they wanted to monitor me. So they strapped me up to this little machine, monitored son, made sure his heart beat and everything was good with him. He was doing perfectly fine. They monitored me, took my blood pressure. My blood pressure was extremely high. And it was so high where they were really alarmed. They thought they were going to have to deliver me right then and there. And so she said, okay, well, they took it up to 3 times. Every time that they took it, it was extremely high. So then triage is where, I went to, they monitored me there. I was there for maybe about 2 hours, monitoring me, monitoring son, making sure my blood pressure was doing good. That was the first time I went. I had a normal routine doctor's appointment, took my blood pressure at the doctor's office. It was extremely high. The third time, every time that they took it, it was extremely high. Went to triage, hooked me up. Sun was good. Blood pressure was still high. They monitored me for the 2 hours. And then after the 2 hours, my blood pressure finally came down. So I was able to go home. Went home next day, same thing. I went to the triage unit 3 times in that week. Went to the triage unit the second time. Blood pressure was still extremely high. They didn't understand why. They were trying to figure it out. And then I think what was kind of throwing them for a loop is that when they would take it, it would be high. But as soon as they would monitor me, it would go down. And so they were just, making sure that I was okay to go home and wouldn't have any problems. And so blood pressure went down, son's heartbeat was good, everything on his screen looked perfectly fine. I was released to go home, went home, third time. Okay, my doctor was like, okay, well now this is happening a little bit too much, and we definitely just want to admit you. So they admitted me, and blood pressure was still high. They admitted me into the hospital. They gave me some medication to kind of help with the headaches. It helped a little bit. The headache was still there. It helped a little bit. Then she diagnosed me with preeclampsia. And at the time, I've heard of it, but didn't really know what it was. She kind of gave me a definition of what preeclampsia was. That a sign of preeclampsia was also headaches, and because I was having a headache that I couldn't get rid of, that's what I ended up having was preeclampsia. And she didn't want to put the baby in distress. She didn't want to um, continue to send me home with these headaches. So she said, third time's the charm. We're gonna go ahead and admit you. We're gonna go ahead and get you prepped for delivery. Listen, y'all, it was so much stuff going through my mind at the time because I already knew that I was going to go my entire term. I knew in my mind that I was going to go my entire 9 months. And when that didn't happen, it rocked my world. It really rocked my world because, for one, I don't think any woman that's pregnant wants to experience any issues, any delays in her pregnancy. And so for me to be diagnosed with preeclampsia because of the headaches were so bad, y'all. Well, my vision would get blurry. I really didn't want to eat. Like the headaches were really, really bad. And then husband was like, okay, baby, it's the third time, but we gotta take you because we want to make sure that number one, the baby is good, and we want to make sure that you are okay. So we went, we got admitted and stayed at the hospital. And because my water hadn't broken, I had to take medication to induce my labor. And it was weird because I had in my mind, y'all, how my pregnancy was gonna go. I was gonna go full term. I was gonna feel my water break. Babe was gonna get me prepared to get to take me to the hospital and the whole shebang, the whole nine. Yeah, that wasn't the case. I had to call my mom. My mom had to go to the house, get the bags. Thank God that we already had bags. My bag, baby's bag already packed. All she had to do was just pick it up, bring it. I was able to eat before they induced me. Thank the Lord, because I don't know if I would have been able to endure pregnancy pains and being hungry all at the same time. Nah, I don't think I would have been able to do that. So I was able to eat before they induced me. I ate. They gave me some medication. The medication didn't take long at all. As soon as they gave it to me, within a couple hours, I was able to feel every contraction. And I had a homegirl. Shout out to my sis Chris Session. Uh, my sis Crystal. I was having a conversation with her on the phone, and she was just kind of wishing me best of luck, praying for me. She loved me, all that good stuff. And she mentioned to me that contractions was like contractions or pushing or contractions in itself or the pain was like being on steroids. It was like contractions on steroids. And it could not have been put a better way. Because no matter how many times women tried to explain to me how contractions feel, it wasn't until I felt it myself where I was just like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe. And then you'll be amazed how much your body can endure when it doesn't have a choice or when there's nothing else that you can do. You just kind of got to sit with the pain. And because I hadn't dropped any or because I hadn't dilated any, I had to kind of sit with the pain for a little bit. And my husband can attest because he was in the room the entire time. Him and my mom, he can attest that every time, I don't know if he felt me squeezing his hand, but I was trying not to break that mug because I had to, like, somebody had to feel it with me. I'm gonna put it that way. Somebody had to feel this contraction with me. Once the contraction started hitting, they started hitting harder and harder. And then that's when I got the epidural. They came in. I had to kind of wrap myself around my husband to kind of be that support and kind of, hold while the pain, was kind of going through. It was like a pinch. Any woman that has experienced epidural kind of knows the feeling of that, the sensation of that. Not a great feeling after the fact, though. You begin to feeling you're feeling real good. And I got the epidural. It didn't work the first time. I was still feeling the contractions. It took a little. I must have been not the only woman giving birth because I felt like it took forever for them to come back to the room to re-administer the epidural. They had to literally do everything all over again. They had to take the needle out. They had to reposition it. They had to put it back in. I mean, it just was horrible. Before they came back in the second time, when they did the epidural the first time, I was able to feel a little bit of it. I was able to, subside the pain by pushing a little button. I was able to feel it. The contractions didn't seem so bad. And then all of a sudden it just stopped working. I mean, I'm pushing the button and nothing coming out. And then, I mean, this will be, moments or minutes that have went by where it's time for another dosage. And I will be pushing it and nothing will be happening. And I was feeling every single contraction. Every single contraction. Babe, please describe to them what my facial expressions was. Because I couldn't see myself making these. But I could definitely feel the pain.
Yes. So wife was in pain.
Oh my gosh, y'all.
Contractions were coming.
Hard. Okay.
So the first epidural, we were thinking everything is good and everything, and it was working at first.
Yeah, it was.
Then it was something with the line, and the medicine wasn't going through. So they had to do a second one. So what happened on the first one was on the button, there is a green light that comes on. And when the green light comes on, you push the button and it gives you the medication, so you can feel good. And what happened is Babe would press the button and nothing would happen.
Not at all.
Nothing. I was like, so what's the deal? And she's like, I'm still in pain. There's no medicine. I said, well, you press the button. And it's like, yeah, but it's nothing coming. So I said, all right. So we got the doctor to come back in. And, just like Babe said, they took the needle out the first one and redid a second time. And the second one worked better than the first one.
Yes, it did.
So she's, feeling the medicine. And there was a time, this was later on that night, she was pressing the button. And she was like, "Is there still some in there?" It's like, "Yeah, it's plenty in there. It's nothing is gone. Like it's still I have like it's not empty. So, but I was glad she was feeling, somewhat better from the medication. So,
yes,
my whole thought process, going back to when they said, "Okay, it's time," for son to come. That was not my expectation on that day.
Not at all.
We went for our appointment, and they checked her for the blood pressure. And I was thinking, well, they're gonna
send us home.
Send us home. It's gonna be low, just like the first two times. And so when they came back in the room, Doc came back and said, "Okay, well, this is the third time and 3 strikes. This is it. So we're gonna go ahead and induce labor." And I was like, well, "We're gonna do what?" So I wasn't because the actual due date was that next week.
Yes.
So we were 1 week away from actually, being on the due date. So our thoughts were of the following week.
Yes.
So, but fortunately, we already had the bags already ready. So that whole day goes by, and I was like, okay, Babe's water breaks and everything. Everything is going good. So I'm like, okay, is it gonna happen tonight or how is it?
Man, we were so hoping. We were so hoping. My understanding was as soon as your water breaks, you're ready to push.
Right.
Yeah, that's not the case because you still have to dilate.
Yeah.
And so because I hadn't dilated yet, even with them inducing it, I still hadn't dilated yet. Only thing is my water broke. My water, it felt like a balloon that you just stretch and then it just pops. That feeling was something that I couldn't describe. And then I knew it broke because it was just gushing. It was just water. And so the lady had to come in and do I guess a water tester. I don't know. But she took like this little like test thing there to see if the water had broken. And sure enough, my water had broken. And I was like, okay, well, what do we do now? And she said, well, you still hadn't dilated yet, so we still have to wait until after you dilate some more and then you'll be ready to push. I said, okay, cool. Now, backtracking. Son was due July 24th. During our doctor's appointments, my doctor was on call the week that son was actually due. So we had already prepared to go ahead and give birth or to, induce me on the week he was supposed to be born, on the actual due date he was supposed to be born. But he ended up coming July the 16th, which was the week before. Yes, which was unexpected. Both of us were really shocked that we were going to end up staying that third time around, but it was a chance that she didn't want to take. With sending me back home and then having to keep going back and forth with the or not high blood pressure, with the headache thing. Yeah. So she definitely was on her game with that one and not wanting me to, go home. She was a phenomenal doctor. She was very aware and she was very alert of everything that was going on. She listened to concerns and, she listened to what we wanted to do as far as how we wanted our birth to pan out, the birth of our son to pan out. She was already my OB, and then or not, yeah, already my OB. And so, it was just a easy answer for her to be, you know, my gynecologist or my OB as well as my gynecologist. So it was awesome. We really, really loved it. Going back into the room after they gave me the second dosage of epidural, I got to the point where I was starting to feel a little bit better. The medication was working. Now it's time to push. I said, okay, I think, I can do this. I had it in my mind. Okay. I was ready to push. Get the stirrups out. Doctor nurse comes in. We ready to go. Okay. Put my legs up. Bay on one side, my on the other side. I'm ready to push. And the feeling of pushing, it's almost like a constipation feeling, or it's almost like a feeling like you gotta go. And so I was like, okay, well, when I feel that feeling, the nurse was, when you feel that feeling, go ahead and push. Okay, I can do that. So felt the feeling, go ahead and push. I'm pushing, I'm pushing. I know I had to be making my mom and babe's shoulders hurt because I was really pushing. Come to find out I wasn't pushing the correct way. Well, I really couldn't feel myself pushing because of the epidural. And so she gave me techniques to use to actually help myself push. So I said, okay, it's less in the shoulders and more in the abdomen, the pushing method of it. So I said, okay, cool. I think I can handle it. I'm pushing, I'm pushing, I'm pushing. Son's not coming out. He's stuck right in between the birth canal and the right side of my abdomen. And so he was just there, comfortable, sat up, only thing they could see was hair, but no body, no shoulders, no, stomachs, no arms, nothing. So after we did that, we did pushing for about 2 hours. Yeah, it's about an hour. Yeah. We did pushing for about an hour or two. I got to the point where I was getting really frustrated. I was wondering what was going on. Why is he not coming out? What's happening? What's going on? I'm already been in labor for 21 hours at this point. I've been since the time my water broke or they induced me up until now, it was a 24-hour mark. We're expecting him to come because it went so fast. They gave me the medication, water broke, I dilated, and then it was time to push. So everything happened so quickly, and it didn't take long at all. And we were expecting him to come the night before, but he didn't. So we pushed into 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. Still ain't got here yet. Okay, so what we gonna do now? Because at this point, I'm hot. I'm frustrated. I'm crying because he's not coming out. I'm pushing. My legs hurt. I just was going through a lot of emotion at the time, and so I'm wondering what's going on with my son. And so the doctor, goes up there. She finds out where, son is. And she's like, okay, we have two options. You can either continue to push to see if he'll come out, or no, it was three options. Continue to push to see if he'll come out. If he doesn't, she can go in there and use like a suction cup kind of thing. Since they could see the head, they would just apply it to the head, suck them out almost. I said, okay. And then she said the third option would be to just go in and do a C-section. Because even if I were to do the cup, he would have to be, where the birth canal is for him to be able to come out. And she said right now he's stuck in between the two places. So he's not really lined up to where I can even get him. I said, okay. So C-section is the last thing I wanted to do. And it ended up being the thing that I had to do. And I had to do it to save my son's life, literally. He was in distress at the time. And I'm glad that we made the decision to go ahead and do the C-section. I was exhausted, y'all. I had went through a lot. Almost two births, if you want to be honest. I ended up pushing and then having to turn around and do a C-section. So it ended up being two births, at one time. And so I wanted to sleep because I was so exhausted. I had so much medication in my system, I couldn't keep my eyes open. I couldn't really focus on the doctor. I understand and heard what she was saying, and I'm glad that I had my mom and my husband in the room with me to be able to be, my backup alert. So I could comprehend what she was saying, although I was exhausted. I was tired. I wanted to sleep before they did the C-section. She recommended we don't do that. We need to get you in ASAP. So they ended up having the people come back in, the anesthesiologist come back in, re-administer medication to numb me at the bottom. So I had almost triple, quadruple the medicine. I had the epidural still working. They gave me additional medication to numb the bottom half of my body so that they can go in and actually cut, take sun out. I said, okay, so they wheeled me out. Babe was able to be in there, and he gonna take it over from here because I don't remember nothing after that. All I remember is
Okay.
being wheeled out. That's it.
That was it. That was it. Then the medicine took over.
Yep, sure did.
Okay, so we get to the point, just like Babe was saying, we've been pushing.
Mm-hmm.
Son is stuck,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And so the decision had to be either keep pushing or do the C-section.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I was just like, babe, you've been pushing for almost 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen this way. So
Yeah.
the only other way is the C-section. So when we went with that, um, like Babe said, I, numbed her and everything. She goes into the room first because they're going to get started, and then the plan was for me to come in once they, have set up and everything. By the time the nurse comes to get me to come into the room, I get there. I sit down for maybe 2, 3 minutes, and then they're pulling sun out. So I see him, they, reach, and I see, the baby
Almost
up
like
in
the
the
Lion
air.
King.
Yes. And I was like,
Had my
oh,
son up there
okay.
like Simba.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's him. So they pull him out. Doctors are cleaning him and everything, and making sure everything is good. I am very happy. At this point, I'm like, yeah, okay, son is here, cool. So they're monitoring him and doing everything, and sometimes you can tell when something is kind of off because the nurses were kind of like, well,
They were
why?
concerned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why isn't, such and such? They're checking his blood, oxygen levels and things. And some things weren't, really matching. And so they was like, okay, we're gonna, go ahead and take him, and we still gonna, work on him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, okay, well, everything's cool. They're gonna clean him up. They're gonna monitor him, and everything's gonna be, straight.
Straight. Yeah.
After that. So we wheel him. They let Son touch Babe's hand before we
Mm-hmm.
go.
I remember that part. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
my eyes were barely open, y'all. Listen, I tell you, I was on so much medication. I was exhausted.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
was exhausted, and I could barely open my eyes up, but I felt his finger touch mine. I do remember that, and I remember Babe being on the left of me,
mhm.
sitting right in the chair, and they had him in this little
Yeah,
like
the
bubble
incubator
thing,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
this little, yeah.
yeah,
And I remember vaguely seeing his face because he had so much stuff on him.
yeah,
So I remember vaguely seeing his face, but I do remember his little finger touching mine. I do remember that, and I remember seeing my husband right on the side of me.
yeah, yeah. So we did that. Babe went back to sleep, and
I was exhausted, y'all.
yeah, she was tired. So we go into the other room. they're working on him and everything. At this point, I'm thinking everything is still good. Um, nothing. They didn't say anything was wrong as of yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I went ahead and they're like, okay, we'll, send him back, once we get done, with him and everything. So, um, the doc on my way back to my wife's room, the doctor talked with me and said, okay, there's some things that we're still kind of looking at. We're looking at his blood oxygen levels and things like that. Some things with the brain. And I said, okay, um, is he okay? Or, and they give you the doctor answer of, yes, he's stable, da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, all right. So as I got back to Babe's room, I know she's expecting me to come in with son or me holding him or something. So I kind of brief her on what's going on. Uh, the doctor then comes in and tells us everything. They say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, we have to send him to get cool.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so he won't be with us that night,
Right.
because their normal birth story is okay, have him, they clean him, you cut the umbilical cord,
Chest to chest with
yeah,
mom.
chest, he's with us,
Right.
so we were expecting that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when they wheeled him, said, yeah, we're gonna take him to the hospital and everything else. Um, I was like, okay, well, do what you guys need to do so that he's fine, and everything. Um, I was concerned, but still honestly had questions because I really didn't fully understand what was, happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they explain, doctors, they try their best to, talk in English.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they still, speak doctor.
Right. Right.
So I have understood what she was saying, but I still had, questions. But of course, we couldn't get all the answers at that time. So basically, I was just like, okay, let me go over there, where they're taking him. Wife, of course, was getting her own, self back, just from giving birth. So go to Overland Park Regional. They have everything set up, the cooling thing on the head, the tubes and all the medicine and things. Um, so son got diagnosed with HIE,
Mm-hmm.
which I wish we would have looked at before we go.
Yeah.
But it's a something that happens when there's a lack of oxygen in the brain
Mm-hmm.
for a certain amount of time. Uh, so I was like, okay, wow, that doesn't sound good. So my question was always, well, is he going to be okay?
Yeah.
Um, they kept saying, yeah, he's stable, da da da. I believe it was the next day or the day after. Um, okay, so wifey is still at
St.
St.
Luke's.
Luke's.
That's why I gave birth.
Okay, so she's still getting herself right. So I was traveling from St. Luke's to see her. I
Mm-hmm.
would spend time with her, and then I would go to Overland Park to see son.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at the time, I'm so glad that my job gave me that week off because my
It was a
brain,
lot.
my brain, my brain wouldn't have been off
There was a
work.
lot going on that week.
yeah, it wouldn't have been on nothing with the job. So I'm so glad that they gave me that week. Um, so it was a lot of driving and everything. But this is this is my family, so whatever I had to do, So I believe it was 2 days after. Um, the doctors kind of explained everything that was going on. Like, okay, um, son kind of had some seizures, during the overnight. They gave him medicine, all of that. So now I'm really getting concerned because, like, okay, seizures, um, that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my kind of question was, well, how is this happening? Is there anything we can do to stop the seizure? Because
Right.
we want him to stop. We don't want him to get any further injury with his
Right.
brain.
Right.
So the doctor's like, yeah, we're gonna monitor him. We're still gonna give him medicines and things like that. So um, I was still very hopeful. Praying very hard at this time because now I'm like, okay, God, I need you to be there with son, heal him, and everything. So then I think you were in you stayed for like 3 days in the
I did.
hospital. So it
Yes.
was 3 days, yeah. So babe is finally out. She wants to see son now.
I went when I was released from the hospital. I went directly to Overland Park
Yeah,
Regional.
yeah,
I'm
straight.
not going home. I mean, in pain, y'all.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had a C-section, so they
yeah,
literally had to cut 7 layers of my skin
yeah.
to get my son out. I didn't care about none of that. I want to go see my son,
So, yeah,
especially since he was at what 30, either 30 or 50% oxygen when he came out.
that's
So he was barely breathing.
yeah,
So that was a concern. Another concern was we didn't get to see him before we saw him, but we didn't
yeah,
get to hold him
yeah,
before they sent him to Overland Park Regional. Not only that, but usually when a mom gives birth, they do the first touch. I didn't get that experience. I didn't get to hold my son, heart to heart and chest to chest. So that was something else that, was disappointing, but I knew there was a bigger concern.
yeah,
Me being able to hold him chest to chest, that was something I was going to be able to do for the rest of his life. At the time, there was a bigger concern. My son was barely breathing. Okay, then let's figure out what's going on. Why is he not breathing? Why is he barely breathing? Why is it so hard for him to gasp air?
yeah,
Let's figure that out. As soon as I was released from the hospital, take me to my son. I
yes,
want to go see my son.
yes,
Pain or not. And I waited until after we left the hospital to take medication
yep.
because I wanted to completely be alert of what was going on.
Mhm.
When we got to Overland Park Regional and I put eyes on my son for the first time, y'all, I broke down in tears. And I broke down in tears because I was already hurt at the fact that I don't know what happened. I'm putting a lot of blame on myself. You know what I mean? Is there something I could have done differently? Is there something I could have did better? What did the doctor miss? I mean, we never missed an appointment. We never missed an ultrasound. I took every prenatal vitamin I was supposed to. There was no medication that I took that I was not supposed to. Everything that I was supposed to that I was instructed to do, I did my entire pregnancy. And so I put a lot of blame on myself because me carrying my son, obviously there was something I had to do, is the reason why he is the way that he is, or going through what he's currently going through at the time. So I waited until after we left the hospital to take any kind of medication. I was in pain, I was limping, I could barely get around, I was walking slow, I couldn't use my abdomen. None of that mattered. I want to see my son. As soon as I was released from the hospital, we went directly to Overland Park Regional. Period. Let me see my son.
Did,
You
yeah.
can finish,
And yeah. So get there. Of course, wife is happy to see some, but at the same
absolutely
time,
concerned.
concerned on what's going on.
Yeah, it was so much stuff attached to him.
Yes, yes, it was a lot of tubes there. Um, so the day that I will never forget was the day we had the meeting with the neurologist.
Let's explain what cooling is.
Okay, let's do the cooling part first.
So what cooling is the body tends to be overheated at a certain time or a certain point. And so it's supposed to be a process that kind of restarts the body cooling process over. You know what I mean? It cools the body down to a certain temperature so that everything kind of resets itself, if that makes sense. I'd never heard of cooling prior to this, never knew cooling existed. Apparently, cooling has been around for, I want to say, between 3 to 5 years. Overland Park Regional is the #1 hospital that does the cooling process. Cooling is something that saved my son's life, additional to prayer, additional to God just showing up and being who God is. Additional to that. But cooling saved my son's life. Cooling is something that I'm glad exists. I'm glad that it's been proven to work because look at my son. If you look at him, you wouldn't even be able to tell that he went through what he went through. If you look at him, you wouldn't be able to tell that he was in the NICU for 26 days. Wouldn't have been able to tell, wouldn't have been able to tell that, at one point he couldn't breathe. You wouldn't be able to tell, that at one point he went through those challenges. He was hooked up to machines and on medication and was having seizures and things like that. So the cooling process was just that, cooling the body down, restarting the different organs and body parts of the body. If you want, look it up, Google it, and you can get a more detailed, definition of what cooling is. So many babies have went through the cooling process and are living successful lives. We've seen they have what's called a hope wall in their hallway of their hospital between the cooling process and kind of like the rehabilitation area. And when you see the way that some of these babies were born and the disabilities that they said that they had, they don't have. If you just look at how small the babies were when they came to the NICU and what they endured during the being inside of the womb. Like it was so many success stories that gave us hope because there was times where we felt hopeless. There was times where we didn't think that it was going to pan out right because of what we were hearing. Listen, when you're going through certain things that you're going through, when the enemy tries to creep in, it's so important that you listen to, that you are mindful of what you hear during that time, because that makes or breaks how you go through what you're going through. Sure. It makes or breaks how, you handle what you're going through. So make sure you're, being mindful of what you're hearing, what you're seeing, who you're talking to, and who you're entertaining at the time, because that is a time where it's essential for your life that you get everything God. You know what I mean? That you get everything hopeful, everything prayerful, all of that type of stuff. So it was cooling was definitely something that contributed to saving our son's life. Absolutely did.
Yes, it did.
Yes, absolutely did.
Yeah, and Overland Park is #1 in that. So great staff there, by the way.
Absolutely, from the doctors to the nurses.
Yeah, very good.
Yes.
And so the day with the neurologist, and we went over the
MRI.
Yeah, we went over the MRI of son and his brain. He told us, okay, this is what it is, and basically what he was saying was son may have some challenges with learning things as he gets older. Basically is the gist of it, without giving you the long
version of it.
15-minute deal. So at first you're kind of taken back because you're like, okay, is my son gonna be like the normal kids, or what does this mean? And the doctor, he did his best to he's giving his
expertise.
Yeah, his expertise. At the same time, I believe he was giving us some hope, as in, look, this is what it is. but we're not saying this is how it's gonna be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do thank him for saying that
Yeah.
because he didn't have to. So, um, as we're trying to soak all that in, um, I was just like, okay, like it was a lot of
Information to take in.
it was a lot of info,
It
yes,
definitely was. It
and
was
yeah,
well, 4 different people in there.
yeah, for this, yeah, yeah,
Additional to,
yeah,
us, of course, but
yeah,
or not additional. Outside of us. It was
yeah,
4 additional people.
yeah,
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 in there.
and no lie, that was the lowest I felt during the whole birthing process. Um, my faith in God has always been very, very high, but you never know how faithful you are until you really, really test it.
Yep.
So when that news came, it was like, oof,
It took the wind out of us.
yeah, it's like, what can we do now?
Hmm.
Um, you feel, no lie, you feel hopeless. I'm gonna be completely honest about it.
Yep.
That was worse than seeing the Chiefs lose any game. Anybody that knows me, look, man, when
Die hard. Die hard Chiefs fan.
playoff losses stink. Okay, this was 1,000 times worse than that. And I was just like, okay, well, my thing in my mind was, all right, so where do we go from here,
Hmm.
basically? And that's when me and my wife, we went into prayer hard,
Sure did.
prayed, listening to gospel music. I had gospel music playing all for the whole almost 26
Yeah,
days
the
that,
whole time he was in there.
in NICU, like listening
Just
to
to keep
different
our mind
songs.
right now. We
Yes.
like different music now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
When we're together spending time with one another, we're not listening to gospel music. Let's just keep it a buck.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Listen to
We have,
R&B.
our R&B on,
Yeah,
we're setting the tone, setting the mood.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
spending time with one another. We're getting the romance
yeah.
going,
Romance music,
the whole
romance
shebang.
music.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
The whole shebang.
Yeah,
But it was at a point where we needed to show God.
yeah.
Okay, God, we at the point where, we're desperate almost.
Very much so.
You know what I mean? We're
At that
desperate at
point.
this point.
Yeah,
Um, there's no one else we can call on.
yeah. That call on him.
And so we had to literally surround every ounce of our lifestyle,
Yeah.
from the music to the prayer life to the scriptures to the people we talk to, from, people checking on us, like everything that had to do with our life had to be surrounded. It had to be a God thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? We didn't want to entertain anything else
That's right.
because that was not the time for it.
That's
We
right.
didn't want to entertain anything else. We don't want to hear your negativity. We don't want to hear what you think. We don't want to hear, it might be, might not be. Well, this is the way it's look. We don't want to hear none of that.
None of that. Not the negative.
It was go time.
Yeah, it was
It
go
really
time.
was. It was go time.
Yep.
It was right now. We need you speaking nothing but life.
Life.
Period.
Yep.
Nothing but life.
Yep.
I not on purpose, but on purpose, I ignored phone calls. I didn't respond to texts because I really needed to focus.
Yep.
You hear me? I really needed to focus because my son can't do it on his own.
That's right.
We are his parents. We are standing in the gap.
Yep.
We are his covering. And then I'm grateful for my husband's parents as well as my parents. Not only my parents, but my pastors who covered us as we covered our son. So we had double the covering.
Yep.
And listen, when I tell you, ever since Khalil was in that hospital, his hospital room has never been the same. Listen, his room, true story. And my husband and my mom and dad can attest to this. When Khalil transitioned from being in the cooling process to going to the rehabilitation side, which was the cooling process was over. Now we want to see how well he does after the cooling process. He was in the room and legit, I promise you. Uh from day one, when we started praying, started speaking over his life, started covering him with oil,
Yep.
started covering, his room, all of that good stuff.
Yep.
Every single time we would go into the hospital, because we went to go see him every day. We were there like clockwork. Okay, I would spend 8-hour days, 9-hour days, 10-hour days at the hospital. Babe would go before he went to work. I would go because I was on maternity leave. So we would go starting early in the morning. And I wouldn't leave until visiting hours were never over for parents. But because I couldn't drive because of the surgery, the C-section, I would be riding with my parents. So visiting hours for them would end. So I would leave when they left. So I was there for 9, 10 hours, 12 hours a day, every single day. And so every time that we would go, we would start with prayer, leave his room with prayer.
Yes.
And then it started to become a habit, which prayer life is a part of our lives anyway.
Yeah.
But it became something that we, really strive to make sure that we did before leaving his room. And so after doing that, every time that we would go, stuff will start coming off. Yeah. He was on a ventilator, helping him breathe. He had a feeding tube. He was on 4 or 5 different medications for the seizures. He wouldn't open his eyes. He wouldn't, like make any gurgling or baby noises or anything like that. It was almost like he was not a baby. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't doing what babies would do. It was almost like he was just, we'll see what happens kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like nothing was happening. For a long time, we couldn't see his eyes because he wouldn't open them. For a long time, we had to feed him through a feeding tube. For a long time, we had to be careful how we held him because there were so many things attached to him. And then as our prayer life became stronger, as we started continuing to speak those healing scriptures over his life, as we continued to anoint him with oil, every time we would go to his room, things would come off. Things would start to come off. First thing that came off was his ventilator that was helping him breathe. Yep. He started breathing regular oxygen. Not only was he breathing regular oxygen, but he was breathing at 99%. Yep. Listen, breathing at 99% when he was breathing at 30% when he was born. Listen, 99%, I promise you. And he was like that the entire duration of his stay. Yep. Once that ventilator came out, this is how I know God was working on my son's behalf, because he was telling them what they were going to do before they were doing it. He didn't like that breathing tube. He snatched it out. Yeah. He snatched that mug out. After he snatched it out, the next day they took it out. Yep. Listen, he was telling them what y'all not going to do. Okay? What y'all not going to do. Not only that, his feeding tube was inside of his mouth. Yes. Right down his throat. That's how they were feeding him. Yeah. It went from doing that till, okay, we feel like we could take it out and put it in his nose. We feel like he's taking, at the time I was pumping, So at the time he was able to do breast milk, and, they were giving him the breast milk. He was doing fine the way that they were giving it to him. Now we're going to move it from, the inside of his mouth to his nose. They were giving it to him from his nose, and it would go down into his stomach. They were doing it that way. He got to the point where he was like, okay, I can intake more. I can drink from my mouth. Let me just show y'all what I can do. He snatched it out his nose. Twice. After he snatched it out his nose, the very next day they took it out. Mm-hmm. Listen, he was speaking his own destiny.
Yeah, he was.
He was speaking his own destiny. He was letting the doctors and nurses know, I've had enough of this. Okay? Y'all can take this out because I don't want this no more. Yeah. Right after they took the feeding tube out, we were able to feed him by mouth from a bottle. Yep. Yep. Not only was he drinking, he was drinking the entire bottle. You hear me? The entire bottle. So he was breathing on his own. He was eating on his own. He went from 4 medications for seizures to just 2. Listen, yep. He went from that to not having no seizures anymore.
That's right.
Come on. Yep. And it ain't just because of the medication. It's because God said so. It's because we prayed and said it isn't so. So listen, we went through what we felt was going to break us. Yeah. As being new parents, that was something hard for us to take. To be able to carry a seed, to implant a seed, to be able to carry a seed, then give birth to a seed, and not only give birth to a seed, but then have what you expected your birthing process to be, for it not to be that, for it to be the complete opposite of what you thought it was going to be. To not think that you would have a son that you can hold, to not feel like you would have a son that you can feed, to not be able to, to think that you wouldn't be able to have a son that you could put your eyes on, that's breathing on his own, that's eating on his own, that's exceeding, the expectations of what the doctor set out for him to exceed at a month old. He's exceeding that.
That's right.
And he was exceeding that at the hospital when he took that ventilator out his mouth, when he took the feeding tube out his nose. You know what I mean? When he said, I don't want to have no seizures no more. When I want to eat, drink, drink out of a bottle. You know what I mean? And so it has been a, weary and scary, but at the same time rewarding journey, because it took our faith to a whole nother level. To be in a room with a neuro doctor that operates on the brain. First of all, you got to be exceptionally smart.
Very.
Okay? And you look at shout out to Dr. Albers. When you look at Dr. Albers, you can look at him and tell he's exceptionally smart. Exceptionally smart. The way that he was able to break the brain down to a science, literally. Yep. Listen, you got to be super smart to be able to break the brain down. Yeah. Okay? Absolutely. And, being in a room with, the nurse, the doctor, two neuro doctors. Yeah, and to be in there with also a social worker, to be in there with, your parents who, are there for support, and to see the visual of what the doctor says is wrong with your son. But for you to see his life play out completely different, the complete opposite of what they say. Listen, y'all, one side of his brain had no oxygen to it. And then for the life of me and for the life of them, they couldn't explain why.
Yeah, we don't know why.
They don't know why. They don't know why. And the doctor, the way he put it was, the brain had experienced extensive amount of lack of oxygen so long to where it just we don't even know how this happened. And he said, please don't feel like you did anything wrong, because you did. You did everything that you were supposed to do right. I checked the charts. I spoke with your doctors, and all of that. And everything you did like you were supposed to. This is just one of them things you just can't explain. And the reason why you can't explain it, because it was a God thing. It was a thing that God was going to show up and show out. It was a thing that is. Have you ever been in a situation where it's like, okay, that was nobody but God? This is that.
That is definitely that.
This is that. This is something that was unexplained, but it was a God thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so we are still praying. We are still covering him. We are still anointing him. And we don't know what the future is going to hold. We're not speaking anything on his life, because we know the God that we serve, and we know that God is going to continue to show out. He's going to continue to be a miracle like he has been. You know what I mean? And no matter what the outcome is, we are believing that God is going to continue to do what he's going to do on Khalil's on Khalil's behalf. Yeah. And I am so grateful for the doctors and the nurses, because when I say it was a God thing, it literally was, because from the time I gave birth at St. Luke's until the time son was released from the hospital, everybody was a believer. Listen, from the neuro doctor to the nurses, to the help staff, like the nurses that would come from different hospitals, the helping staff, like everybody was a believer. We even had a nurse go so far as to pray with us.
Yes, she did. Yeah.
Listen, she covered us in prayer before I was released from the hospital. Yep. We had doctors praying for us. We had nurses praying for us. We had, son was the favorite at the hospital, not just because he's cute. Give thanks to us. Not just because he's cute, but because of his journey, because of his story, because he was just, a kid that was just lovable. He was a baby that people loved on, and, they would come from where they were to come and see him. Yep. They would come from the area that they're supposed to be in to come and see him. They would skip lunch breaks, to just come and hold them, and, to cuddle them, and to, just put eyes on them. And everybody was just phenomenal. Yes. The staff was very phenomenal. Currently, son is still, being monitored. They're still having certain, appointments that he has to go to make sure that he's developing the way that he should be. Right now, he's ahead of the game. He's a month old. He'll be 2 months next Friday on the 16th. Listen, y'all, that went by so quick. He'll be 2 months next Friday. And so far, he is doing everything that he is supposed to be doing at a month old. And he will continue to do everything that he's supposed to be doing as the older that he gets. And it's a blessing to be able to see other kids that had this condition. Did you hear what I said? Had this condition. And to see where their lives are now. They're thriving. They're successful. They're doing amazing things, and we also have doctors or not doctors, but nurses who had children who were in the NICU because of the same situation.
Mhm.
And they were able to tell us success stories about their kids. So,
Yep.
we are giving God the glory. We are giving God the praise because he definitely showed up. He showed up, and our faith has increased tremendously. It's one thing to say that you have it, but it's another thing to put it to the test or for it to be tested.
Tested.
And it was definitely tested.
It was.
Definitely tested. We love him to life.
Yes, we do.
He is so awesome. He is such an awesome kid.
It
Um,
is.
he's observant at a young age. He's very talkative.
Mhm.
He's talking a lot more. He's starting to turn himself over. At a month old, I said, "Well, slow up,
Yeah, slow. Yeah.
because you know what that means. You moving that quickly, then it's something
Yeah.
mom and dad need to tell people, but it ain't.
Yeah.
Okay, it's gonna be a little minute before we, start having another one. We want him to be, walking out of diapers,
Yeah.
talking,
Yeah.
like using words talking,
Yeah.
not the baby
Not
talk,
the baby talk.
verbally talking, speaking, so we are excited about the milestones that he's going to reach. We are super excited about his life's journey, and he's going to have a testimony when he gets older. He'll be able to tell you his own story, when he gets older, because God has really shown up and showed out on the behalf of, the Brodrick family. And our birthing story is just that, our birthing story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, it was a blessing to be able to carry son. It was a blessing to be able to for him to be carried full term, but not full term. Not the whole 9 months, but he was developed
Yeah.
fully,
Yeah. It was
is what I mean by full term. And to be able to birth him and look at him and touch his hands and, talk to him and, bathe him, change him, feed him, all of that good stuff. We're looking forward to, telling them, you're teaching them, everything that we've learned along the way, good things that we want to instill into them, values and, standards and, loving, how to love people and how to respect people and respect yourself. So, we're looking forward to parenthood. We're looking forward to what's to come as he gets older, what's to come as, he reaches certain things in his life where, we're gonna play a major part, in his life.
Yeah.
So listen, that's our birthing story, baby. Anything
Yeah.
else you want to add?
No, that was it. But man, God is awesome.
Absolutely.
God is awesome, man. I would just tell people if you ever in a situation where it feels like there's no hope, pray.
Hmm.
Get on. You don't always gotta get on your knees to do. You can be standing up and pray. You can be in your chair and pray. Uh, just pray and be with God during that time, and be very serious about your prayer and specific about your prayer as well, and you will see things start to change for the
Hmm.
better. Um, Nobody can tell me that he's not real
That's it.
or nothing because but God, but God. So
That's it.
it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank y'all so much for tuning in to the Queen's Lounge podcast. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day just to listen to our birthing story. It is like none other. It's not your typical, traditional birthing story, but it's our birthing story, that produced our son Khalil, Brodrick, who we absolutely love and adore. And thank God for him every day.
Yes.
And I hope that this video inspired, someone. I hope that this video leveled up your faith.
Yes.
I
Yes.
hope it leveled up your faith. I hope that it increased your faith. I hope that it, when you do find your faith being tested, that your faith shows up in a big way, in a very big way. Because
Yeah.
definitely for us, it showed up in a big way.
Yes.
It showed up in a big way, and we thank God that we had faith to rely on,
Yeah.
and that we had faith to push us. to, be better, do better, and live better.
Yes.
So we are so grateful for that. So listen, you can catch me wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm on everything. Okay. I'm on Spotify, I'm on Anchor, I'm on Pandora, I'm on Castbox, I'm on all of that. So wherever you listen to your podcast, there you can listen to the Queen's Lounge. People know where you at, where they find.
All right. The G Report is also on Spotify. We have a YouTube channel as well. So hit that notification bell. We're on Facebook as well. And also the Chief show that I do, Red Kingdom, on Saturdays on the All Sports All Plays Network at 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Do that on Saturdays. It's going to be a really good football season. So
Go
that's where you can
Chiefs.
find me. Go Chiefs. All the way.
Right. Thank y'all so much for tuning in, and we're going to catch you on the next one. Peace.
Yeah.